Good morning. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and do a review of the Fairy Lights Tarot, but as I'm doing the review, I figured I would show you how I used the deck as a whole, which is going to give you a weekly tarot reading, okay? That's what I'm going to do, and that's going to be my review so that you see how I use it. I will tell you, I'm not going to do a walkthrough of this deck. If you want to see a walkthrough, there are plenty of people who've done walkthroughs on several of the decks. This is just specifically going to be a review and how I've used the deck. I did not like this deck at first, honestly, mainly because I was reading out of the little white book and the cards didn't make sense with what the book was saying to me because my intuition just did not mesh well with it. So it took me a long time to pick up the Fairy Lights Tarot and really start using it. And I just spent the last 2 weeks strictly using this. I used it in my dailies, I used it in my weeklies, I used it in my moon readings, and I used it in my weekly like reading for other people. Because we do a weekly, here in town we have a weekly tarot group, and we all get together and we read for each other in a form of practice, which has been really great, by the way. But in that, we do 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 readings a night each time we do it for different people. And so it's really easy to get to know the decks. It's really easy to get to know your intuition with the decks and how you're working with the decks and stuff like that, it's helpful. And it was really helpful with this deck. I stopped using the white book because I just couldn't do it. Instead, I just went intuition, and so far with every reading, including my own, I've gotten a better reading than trying to read out of the book. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to read intuitively with you, and I feel like this deck also goes really well with an oracle, like a fairy oracle. So the one that I'm using is the Fairy Blessings Oracle that I'm going to use with it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a fairy card first, a fairy oracle card for the fairy blessings, and that's going to be the overall of the reading. And then I'm going to pull 3 cards. Now, here's the kicker. This will be a little bit of a long review because of how I read this. So the Fairy Lights Tarot is built in pairings. Now, you can read them separately or you can read them together. It works both ways. I prefer to read them together. So when I pull my 3 cards, then I have to go through the deck and I have to look for its pairing card, because the Fairy Lights Tarot, each pair is a whole picture that the artist cut in half. So if we have, say we have the Fool, okay? Well, its other half is the 10 of Pentacles. And they go together as one single picture. And they can read separate, or you can read them together as a whole reading. So I'm going to pull 3 cards, just so you can see. I might actually pull 2 cards. That might be better, because it'll be 4 cards total after that. So 2 cards is probably the better bet, especially for just like a review like this. So yeah, I'll go ahead and pull 2 cards, and then I'll have to look through the deck for the other 2 cards that pairs with it and give you the full reading, okay? So, the artwork on this deck has been really difficult for me because the artwork goes in and out of being like blurry, not blurry kind of thing, okay? It has a sense of otherworldly to it that I guess it's hard for me to explain. Like, I see it because I like working with the Fae. So when I'm working with this deck, I can see the parts where it's blurred into a different realm, okay? Like the cards aren't, some of them are sharp, the edges in the image is sharp, and some of them aren't quite there yet, implying that they're coming from somewhere else and aren't completely focused on, which I feel like is more in the realm of the Fae, and that's what the fairy lights are. And it's also, it gives you that in-between. I really feel like this deck has an in-between with it and really works well with the fairies, because the fairies, or the Fae, work in the in-between. And that's where a lot of the cards readings comes from. And even the fact that the artist split the images into different cards is an in-between. And that's really interesting to me. Like this deck made this deck so much more interesting just because of how it all goes together. So we're going to pull that one as the first card. All right. What's next? What's next? We're just looking for a review reading. Let's see what we can put together. And I guess we're going to pull that one. All right. So these are the two cards that I pulled. Okay. All right. So we have the Five of Wands is the first card. And the card that goes with the Five of Wands is, sorry, I have my list in front of me because I do not have them memorized. Sorry, guys, that is not going to happen. All right, let's see if I can find the Five of Wands here. 8 Swords. 6. There we are, Five of Wands. All right, Five of Wands goes with the Empress card. Okay. That's not the Empress. These cards, they really are pretty. They're so, so pretty. They have so much meaning behind them. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the different kinds of meaning they have. All right. This one I do believe is the Empress. That might be the High Priestess. Sorry, they don't have the names on the cards, so I have to improvise here. That's not, that's Judgment. This one I think is the Empress. Yeah, this one's High Priestess and that's the Empress. Okay, so that one's the Empress. All right, and then this one is the Fool, not the Fool, it's the Magician. And the one that goes with the Magician is 3 of Chalices or 3 of Cups. So I've got to find that here. And unfortunately, there's just no faster way for me to do this. Even though I've worked with this deck for 2 weeks, there's just so much more to this deck than 2 weeks worth of stuff. So bear with me, please. All right, I am looking for 3 of Chalices, which is right there. Awesome and amazing and wonderful. All right. So we pulled 1 major arcana, and then we pulled 1 just regular that goes with a major arcana. All right, so we have 5 of Wands, all right? I showed you this card, 5 of Wands, and as a whole on its own, you see these people down here, and they're headed towards kind of like into the moon, like something is shifting, like they're headed towards something, okay? The card isn't like a super happy card or super sad card, though the moon's face has like a sense of, I'm not going to say disinterest, but almost like it knows what's happening and isn't surprised by it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So you have them going off towards the moon. These little beings right here, these little animals, and it almost looks like these guys are shifting into something. So there's a change, okay? That's a change that's going to happen. Now, it goes with the Empress card, okay? Here's the Empress card right here. That's what it looks like in the Fairy Lights Tarot. She's very pretty. She's up above. She has, you know, her little wand thing that's shining light on this side. She has her wings. She's on her throne, and she has the people beside her. And these two are carrying lights, okay? And they're heading towards something, okay? So when you put these two cards together, And I'm not reading the Empress separately because that's not a card that we pulled. It's a card that goes with a card we pulled. So we read it together instead of separates. That's how I'm doing it, okay? Now here's the whole picture. Now when you look at the picture as a whole, let's see if I can back up here. You have the Empress, right? And then you have these people who have these lights that they're moving towards. Okay, the lights still happen. And at first you don't notice the lights until you pull this card out, right? Because it kind of just looks like it blends into the background. But when you have this card, you see that they're carrying a light and they are shifting, like that's a full person. And suddenly it's a little more stooped and a little further away, a little more stooped, a little further away, a little more stooped, a little further away. And then the shift actually starts happening. So there is going to be a shift this week that's going to be important towards how this week is going to go. And I don't think it's an unexpected shift. It's probably something that is expected. It's that that energy is not a disinterest or a surprise. It's for sure something that you are expecting to happen, okay? Now the next card we pulled, one is a major, which is the Magician. And this is such a pretty card, like it really is. And when you read this one on its own, you know, there's the Magician, there's the eternity symbol, I think is what that's called. Infinity symbol. Okay, it's in the hat, which I thought was really cool. You have the light shining down. You have these little like starry, fey type lights all around the Magician, showing that source of magic. And then he's like a maestro. He's making it happen. He's manifesting. He's making this happen, okay? It's not something like, it's not an inactive thing. He's actively creating something. He's actively making these things happen. He's actively being the maestro of his little area, his little scene. And I think that's what we take away this week from this card is you have to be active this week. You have to actively try. You have to actively be present with who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, okay? And that's where that magic comes in. Now we're going to read it with its secondary card, which is the Three of Cups, Three of Chalices, okay? And I'll show you the card before I put them together. And you see you have these little sleepy guys, and you have the bees, and you have the flowers, all right? So that's what it looks like. Now we're going to put it together. And when we put it together, here we go. This is what we got when we put it together. Let me see if I can get, there we go. Now when you put it together and you see it like this, you can see them sleeping, right? And then the leaf is kind of coming over into this own card. He's not facing these guys. This maestro is not facing them, and they aren't really facing him either. Like this one is, but it's more facing this guy right here. And then you have the bees. This is a sense of awakening, okay? This is the sleepy, and then this is the active and aware. So there's a sense of awakening this week into something. So maybe it's an awakening into something that you need to change based off these cards, right? Because this is a change card. It's a shift card. So perhaps you're awakening to a change that needs to happen, and you're not surprised by that necessarily. I don't feel like, because these two cards don't give you the sense of surprise, okay? So that change, though, might be major because this is a major arcana card. It's a big deal in your life. So if you're waiting to make a change, maybe now's the time to really give it some real thought and real consideration, all right? So those are your main cards. Now let's take a look at the fairy blessings, the blessing that the fairies are going to give you this week, all right? The oracle cards that I chose to go with this go really well. These cards play well with the Fairy Lights Tarot, all right? So, sorry. These things are so big for my hands. My hands are tiny, guys. My hands are tiny. So be patient with me. I don't mean to be mean to my cards, I promise, okay? I guess this is the card that probably wants to come out. All right. So the card that came out is a Blessing of Stillness. Isn't she pretty? I love the artwork on these cards. I do believe they are the deck is by Lucy Cavendish, but I think the artwork is an Amy Brown artwork. I can't remember for certain. Anyways, so this fairy blessing card for you is number 6. And I don't have these memorized either, so yes, I am reading out of the book. All right, a blessing of stillness, guys. Oh, she is so pretty. And look at how peaceful she is. Isn't she gorgeous? All right, I'm going to leave her up here while I read, all right? A blessing of stillness, the fairy gift of pause, calm, and an opportunity to be tranquil. It is the moment, the one long moment before all the other moments with their cares and responsibilities gather about you. Let the fairies give you their gift of time, their blessing of the long moment to gather about you and pause within, while you cease observing the rush and the hurry and endless, pressing things that must be done. Pause now and let them take you within, either within your own self to the place you have nurtured there, the grove within, or to the grove, or the sea, the lake or the river, the tree or the garden, the fireplace or the rocking chair, and be still a while, human child. And in this space, let calm return. Let peace quietly sit beside you and talk to you of how much there is to be glad for. Let an old friendship reignite, the one between you and your soul. And for these long moments between all the other moments, let yourself be taken into the world between the worlds and be still. And when you return, there will be a great presence to you, and you will be restored to your own centra once again. All right, now talk about these cards going with these, right? Because you have the awakening that's happening. It's talking about you going into your center and to awaken into that, but to do it peacefully. And that's probably why this isn't a surprise card, okay? These are not surprises. This is something you kind of already know within yourself. And this one right here is telling you to look within while you make that decision and to be at peace with the decision that needs to be made. And that, you can... It really is about the internal peace in yourself and this decision, this change that needs to be made this week, and the awakening to the change. Like, you're going to make it. It's going to happen. All right, guys? So here it is. This is your blessing, your fairy blessing of time, of tranquility, to sit, be at peace with yourself in order to make this kind of shift in this awakening. All right? So there it is. That's the review. You can see how well the cards work together. You can see how it might work with an oracle deck. I do feel like this would be better suited to a fairy oracle deck of some kind. Any kind of fairy oracle would probably work. I don't know for sure because I didn't work with other oracles. But these cards are beautiful. And if you like reading intuitively, these are the kind of cards you want to pick up, all right? So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you enjoyed as a review for the decks, and I'll keep going with it and see where it leads, all right? Have a terrific week.